Hi, my name is Chris. I've got automotive industry experience for many years, and I've been shopping for and purchasing auto insurance since the fax machine. Yes, back in the old days, if you went to a dealership and you wanted to buy a car, you couldn't leave without proof of insurance, and your agent would fax it to you. So we've come a long way. Yeah, we've got a lot to cover, and I promise that your time spent here will be well worth it. So let's get right into it. So best car insurance comparison sites. There's a lot of options out there, and I narrowed it down to 5 that I think are well worth taking a look at on your part. I've gone through them all and gone through the quotes and the websites, and I can tell you kind of firsthand what you could expect from them. So ultimately, technology is in our favor now, and the comparison sites really kind of bring that field where you can save time and money. Ultimately, you can get on several of these and you can have a ton of quotes to work through, and then you want to weed through, which ones are really kind of talking to me, which ones, look like they're the direction I want to go in. And then you can do a deeper dive on those as well. So the time savings is tremendous by utilizing these comparison sites. And you may have already used comparison sites with travel, those kind of things. What you look for, carrier access, some of these are going to have 120 plus. Other ones are going to be a little bit more limited in the carriers that they have access to. There's no good or bad in that. It's just, it is what it is. To me, it's about the strength of the carrier and the price, and less about, they've got over 120. Well, that doesn't matter to me. I want to save money and make sure I'm protected. Quote accuracy, that's important, because obviously some of these are going to be real-time quotes that can be a little bit more, you could take it to the bank number. The other ones are going to be rough estimates, and that can be a kind of a problem, because ultimately you may think it's one number, and then when they sharpen their pencil, at the end of the day, it's significantly higher, which is kind of a bummer when that happens. But be on the lookout for that. Lead gen versus marketplace. Marketplace is kind of like a path of least resistance. I like the lead gen. Why? Because this is an important process you're dealing with here. Insurance is something we don't necessarily want to, we have to get it, but we want to save money at the same time. And we want to make sure we're covered in the event that we do need it. So I like to talk or double check with an expert, and that's the agent. So the lead gens will get you in touch with an agent, which to me is a good thing. State support and privacy. I live in Florida, and we have PIP, personal injury protection, and we have the no fault. So that's stuff I've got to look out for, by state regulations. So my insurance company is going to have that or offer that. I've honed in on the 5 that I think are well worth the time. So let's kind of jump into that and see what we found. So Insurify is number 1. And let me specify this: this 5, they're so close in comparison. There's not a lot of difference between number 1 and number 5. So keep that in mind. It's quite impressive how close the competition is. Just little quirks are what set them apart. So Insurify they've got quick personalized estimates. Well, that's good, because they want personalized, meaning it's curtailed to you, but fast. Great. Give me the information as quickly as you can. For my personal experience, Florida and PIP and stuff like that, they deal with that. The negative and the only negative that I found was they require a phone number if you want to finalize a quote. Well, if you're seriously shopping for auto insurance, the last thing you care about really is giving out your phone number. At least that's my opinion. So I don't know if that's really a big negative. The second one is Zebra. They have great education, and they have the ability to compare multiple options at once. That's a time saver, and that's really cool. That's a strong benefit, I would say. The negatives are sometimes you get fewer quotes, and they're not always the lowest. Well, that is a negative. Why? Because, you're trying to save money, hopefully, and have a strong policy. Well, be on the lookout for that, because that's something to think about. The next one is compare.com. They're strong savings estimates. Good, perfect. We're saving money. Carrier access, they've got strong, broad carrier access. That's another plus. Can be, as long as the carriers are strong. You could have 100 that are weak, but if you got 5 that are strong, give me the 5. But the negative is less educational. Well, that maybe it's important to certain people. I always want to be educated, but I'm not buying the education. I'm buying the policy and the safety and the security that policy is going to give me, and hopefully not have to pay an arm and a leg for it. So that's what's important to me, not so much the education. EverQuote, they are good for complex transactions. So what's complex? Multiple cars, multiple drivers, teen drivers, which are very, very expensive, and even bundling. So I can see where that's a true plus. That's something where it's like, there's a lot of numbers, a lot of things moving around. But what I experienced personally, their negatives are, you hear from an agent. That's not a negative to me. I want to talk to somebody because I want to get this wrapped up, save money, and be on my way, and make sure that I'm totally covered. The negative I experienced, and you'll see this in a moment here, I only got 3 quotes from them. That was surprising. I was like, only 3? So you'll see that in a moment. And then number 5 is Best Money. They specialize in fast, no frills, and they are low rate focused. Good. That's what I'm looking for. Low rates. And they've got big names: Geico, Progressive, Allstate. What was also cool about them is immediately after I went through the quote section, I got calls almost immediately. Now I did get texts from the other ones too, and I did, some did reach out to me, but they were the first to reach out to me. So I want to notate that. Maybe you don't like calls. I do personally. I want to get it wrapped up, and I want to make sure I'm saving myself and my time. The negative is limited education and guidance. I mean, maybe that's a negative for you. It's not for me. Just give me my policy and let me go. So that's a good one. Now, the things they're going to ask you when you go through these sites: driving record, type of car, zip code. Zip codes vary greatly, and that'll definitely make your quote and your policy vary greatly depending on where you are. Florida has a lot of flood zones, hurricanes, all that fun stuff. So credit score, even teen drivers. So you'll be inputting that. State specific thing like Florida, privacy and trust. It's the internet. There's always a risk. And then bundling opportunities. You got a home, boat, motorcycle, whatever. They can throw it together, and a lot of times you get a really good discount. Perfect, saving money. What I recommend is pick 2 or 3 of the comparison sites and go through them, and pick the ones that kind of seem like they're, kind of good options. And then you take a couple from each one, and then you've got your group there, and then you do a deeper dive on those. And ultimately, that's a really good, fast, and efficient way to navigate through this, because you haven't gone to just one site, you've gone to a couple sites and done true comparison shopping. So that's a recommendation for sure. I've been through 3 insurance in the last 5 years, mainly because we had a hurricane a couple years back, and everything went haywire, flood damage, all that kind of stuff. So I was insurance jumping, and it saved me each time I would get a renewal. It was a 10% increase. Well, went back to the comparison sites, did the shopping. What did I get? I saved 10%. So you kind of, even if it's only for a year, hey, I'll take 10% savings any day versus paying 10% more. Verify your information, make sure that everything's correct. Double check, your zip codes and those kind of things, because that will drastically sometimes change what you're paying. And just watch out for the raising your deductible. That's something I would definitely be cautious of, because you can end up costing yourself a lot of money. Ultimately it comes down to, in these 5, there's no best. It's what works best for you, and trying to get into a strong policy with a strong carrier that's going to cover you in the event you need it. And it doesn't take a fortune to pay the premium every month or all in one lump sum. So hopefully you're saving money, and you're getting some really strong comfort in knowing that somebody's watching your back. So let's get through these websites here. I won't scroll down all of them, but it's a typical website, and clearly Insurify offers a lot. They do car, home, renters, pet, and other coverages. So if it works out good for you and you go with them, maybe you go with other stuff as well. But I went through their whole process, ended up getting some quotes, and they ended up giving me 8. So I had 8 to work with. And I liked that it was a broad range. Some of these names I've heard of, other ones I haven't, but I like that they gave me 8, because that's a good number to be able to sit there and say, okay, which one of these are looking attractive to me to analyze more. Now the Zebra, they gave me 8 as well, and so they do other stuff. Looks like they do car and home and renters, but I don't think they're as broad as like Insurify is. But you look at this, and I got 8. So a lot of these names are going to be overlapped, and then some of the other ones, I've never heard of these names, but that doesn't mean that they're not good. They could be great. National General, whatever. You'll find other things that maybe you didn't know is out there. That's another plus here too. Compare.com, again, they gave me 7. They actually gave me 8, but they gave me root insurance twice. So to me, you gave me 7. But that's still it's an acceptable amount to be able to analyze. Now here's where we go to EverQuote. Looks like they only do auto and home and renters. Nothing wrong with that. If you're looking for auto, they do auto. Only got 3. They got Progressive, Allstate, and Protect. I mean, that's so few. But I mean, to me, that's a negative. Maybe they're all strong policies. No, I don't know. Best Money, they do a lot. They do, mortgages, debt consolidation, pet insurance, everything. So again, if you have a good experience with them, there's other things. They have life insurance, super important, especially if you have a family. And they actually gave me 8, which I was impressed with. So went through there and, got Allstate, Progressive, Geico, a lot of names that I recognize and a lot that I don't. But that was impressive to me. I was really happy to see that. So like I said, there's no best of in this group. They're all strong, but I had to put them in a certain range, and variable. But the goal is, again, you just want to make sure you're truly covered, and get the best policy you can with a truly strong carrier, and hopefully save money or spend the least, that it takes in order to accomplish that. Because, everything's getting expensive. Insurance, everyone knows, keeps going up. Well, these are ways you can hopefully combat that. And I hope that this information has kind of helped you a little bit, in your search. These are 5 that I will definitely continue to use. They're all great. And hopefully you found benefit in this video. I appreciate your time and good luck with your search. Hopefully it works out well for you. And I know it definitely has for me. So that's why I'm sharing this with you. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. See you next time, hopefully. Bye-bye.